And that concludes our Apple conference. Please be sure to upgrade your iPhone soon because here at Apple, money is love, and we have low self esteem. So send us as much love as you can.
Yeah, $1,000 worth of love. Although with that fox emoji, it's love I'm willing to give. The heck are all these balloons doing around here?
Hello, Zeph.
Okay, first of all, how'd you get into my house? Second, why are you dressed like a warlock?
I've experienced something amazing, and I want to share it with you.
That doesn't explain how you got in my house, but okay, fine. And what's with the yellow eyes?
It's amazing. There are laser guns and spaceships and wizards and everything. Why don't you come with me and see for yourself?
Do these pictures come from the moon?
Oh, yes. They come. They all come. And you'll come too. Ah! Hello, Internet, and welcome back to another episode of That Random Podcast Show. The podcast show that is trying out a few new things and hoping they stick. I am your host, Tyler Chansey, the digital desperado himself. And with me, as always, is the surprisingly soprano fox boy, Michael Mosley.
And now you people know why I didn't get chosen to voice a character in Ukulele.
uh, Give it time. Eventually, you'll find some way to show your love for the furry folk.
Yeah,
But
I'm pretty sure it's going to be the iPhone 10. That's where I'm going to show my love. Animated
oh,
foxes?
oh dear. But yeah, you did catch the Apple. What was it called? The Apple phone talk thing, whatever.
It's called
And
the Apple event. Apple
it's
phone talk thing? What?
I really don't follow Apple anymore, man. I mean, they've got enough money as it is. I mean, with all those iPhones and iPads they keep putting out, and yeah, that's basically the only thing I heard that came out of that big old conference. The next iPhone's supposed to be what, $1,000?
Yeah, if you want the lower tier iPhone 10, it's going to be 1,000. The higher tier iPhone 10 is going to be $1,150. But, that's only if you want like the newest one. They also announced the iPhone 8, which would be significantly lower than that.
Yeah, all I heard out of that was it's new. Okay, what kind of freaking tech are they even putting into these phones anymore? Because it's getting very difficult to swallow with this sort of stuff.
Well, it's more just Apple being Apple. It's like, yeah, we make everything lighter and thinner and 70% faster. It's like, okay, that's pretty cool, I guess. But
It,
the
it, it's
iPhone,
it's more of Apple being Apple with making everything all curvy and plastic and proprietary and selling the brand
oh
more
no,
than
my
selling the
friend,
tech.
no more plastic for iPhone. The iPhone 8 now has a glass front and back.
You're still not discounting my point though, buddy. It's you're buying more for the brand's name more than the tech at this point because, well, it's always the dirty secret when it comes to Apple stuff. Their tech is actually a couple of years behind everybody else, but they present it so well it's much more easily digestible. It's more accessible. Mostly for what it is. Thanks, Steve Jobs. May you rest in peace. You had a good life, but quite a few other things have happened in the world of geek and tech media that I think we do want to talk about in some respects. As you guys may have gathered from our little introduction. Sorry, by the way, I want to dress up like a clown and scare you.
I take
we
no responsibility for anything that happened in that intro.
Please do. You're culpable with me now.
Yeah, I just edit the videos. Not have nothing to do with the intro.
You're crazy, crazy, crazy boy. But we
Oh,
have
hold on.
actually.
Oh, hold on, man. People might think you're a little racist for saying such a thing.
We'll get to that later on in the show, but let's stick to the more positive, more interesting things at the moment that have happened to us recently.
Wait, what? You're not one of those people who like to take the bad news before the good news? Because I'm that kind of person. But you actually had a couple interesting things you wanted to talk about today. So how about we just go ahead and jump right into it?
Yes, please. Thank you for keeping this away from me so long. I'm like a dog on a leash.
That's what I do. It's what I've been doing since like episode one.
And it drives me up a wall to no freaking end. But yes, I did, of course, get a chance to look at the much anticipated, hyped 2017 remake of Stephen King's It. And I liked it. I really don't want to oversell it. It's like, I mean, it's good. It's a well-made movie, and you're talking to somebody who doesn't go out of his way to see horror movies all that often. So a lot of stuff I know a lot of horror buffs are going to hate or not like about the movie, I'm much more forgiving of. So it's it's weird coming out of my mouth, but at the same time, I do appreciate, I guess, the cultural relevance of it and how it's made entire generations of people scared to death of clowns for actually kind of understandable reasons if you actually read the book. But I actually, because the remake was coming out, I actually picked up a copy of the novel. I've been reading it, and yeah, I'm finding out really quickly why people have been saying for the longest time that this book is basically unfilmable because it is thick. This is an improvised cudgel. This is a 1d6 book. You could beat a man to death with the paperback version of it. I am not kidding. And it goes all over the place. It's basically two halves. Set in two different time periods, in the 50s and the 80s, and it goes all over the place with hate crimes, bigotry, murderous stalkers, ghosts, monsters, cosmic horror. Uh, it's it's a bizarre mess of a book, but I can't stop reading it once I start, which is strange. And of course, the only other one that a lot of people, of course, remember is the TV miniseries in 1989, 1990 with Tim Curry as the evil, creepy clown. And Michael, help me out here. Are you familiar with the book or the TV series at all?
I just understand that it was written by Stephen King. It's part of the Dark Tower universe, or
Everything Stephen King writes is part of the Dark Tower universe.
yeah, including his JFK killing book. But honestly, I have nothing to add to it because one, I'm a wimp. I don't really watch horror movies,
Mm-hmm.
so I never watched it.
Mm-hmm.
I never even saw. Wait, I think I've seen Scream. I didn't even watch the original Scream. I think I did. I don't know. So honestly, you're at a loss here. I'm actually interested in watching this. That's how great the trailers and the advertisement was. The clown himself looked real creepy, like a balding old man. Well, not even really old, but a balding middle-aged man who looked like he'll touch little kids. So I could kind of see why the fear would stem from pedophilia
Actually,
and why you would fear from like children being afraid of clowns.
believe it or not, you're actually kind of off the mark, Michael, with the creepiness of Pennywise. But it's
Really?
interesting
Yeah,
it's
it
it's
always.
interesting you went to that angle though.
Well, yeah,
I'd say.
because for me, for some reason, when I see Pennywise and the point that he hunts children, it always seems like a children's fear of clowns in general, and adults' fear of evil people who would do things to harm
Who would
children.
take advantage of a child's innocence? I got you.
Yeah,
Well, okay, so every time you see Pennywise, I'm assuming you're talking about the Tim Curry version that a lot of people like to reference.
well, I mean both really. Like the Tim Curry version, yeah, but I also saw him as kind of like just a horror movie cliche kind of villain, only because the time that I grew up and I finally saw or at least recognized it. All these slash movies were mainstream, and it
Mm,
was just another movie to me. But the
mm,
newer one, it just seems like they played up on his whole child molesting creepy ways to me.
that's. I'll say it again, man. You're actually kind of off the point. Like the whole book of it, the book and the miniseries, was about a bunch of kids in the 1950s who discover that the town they're in, small town of Derry, Maine, has been terrorized by an entity that keeps showing up looking like a clown. And whenever he pops up, kids vanish, adults vanish, and their bodies are discovered later, all mutilated and messed up. And it keeps happening every 27 years. And the clown has popped up around them, and starts basically freaking them out. And they kind of figure out that he's not exactly just a clown. He's some sort of demonic horror that's able to morph his body into what they fear the most. And it takes on multiple forms and terrorizes them and comes after them. And they basically try to defeat him. And then the book jumps ahead 27 years with them as adults, and they have to come back to the town because, oh no, they didn't kill this monster. So yeah, it looks like a creepy clown, but it's actually a sort of an alien being wearing a clown flesh suit, I think is the best way to describe it. And the TV miniseries didn't really explain that all that well. It was just a creepy clown that could do supernatural things. It was messing with them, but of course everybody mostly remembers it because of Tim Curry just absolutely hamming it the heck up. Hell, we homaged it a while ago, and that's, I think, the biggest departure for the remake of it. The big thing is, for one, they basically have chopped the movie up into two halves. For one, they're focusing this one that's in theaters right now on the characters as kids, just them as kids, no future stuff, and it's actually effective because the biggest problem with, I think, both the book and the TV series is it changes so quickly between genres. Like it goes from kids, being terrified because you're basically children against a monster. It's bad enough that it's based on adults, an adult-sized thing that they could overpower them easily, but it's also a monster that turns them into stuff they fear the most. So really throw anything at you: werewolves, giant birds, a swarm of flying leeches that drain you dry. I'm not even kidding. This is actual stuff from the novel, and horrific things. And then as adults, it kind of goes off the rails with a bunch of cosmic stuff. Like there's a giant space turtle at one point. I'm not kidding. This is all in the book. And for this remake, they've kept it to basically just as kids. They kept it to just being a creepy clown that eats children, doesn't touch them, eats them. Like they make it very clear, and they changed the timeline a bit. In this one, the kids face Pennywise, the dancing clown, in 1988, and it's only because I think for two big reasons. One, 80s nostalgia. 80s nostalgia is around a lot now. Stranger Things is capitalized on that. That upcoming adaptation of Ready Player One is all about it's all about loving the grand decade that is the 80s, and of course, not to mention the book came out in the 80s, so a lot of 80s nostalgia. And two, so when they make the sequel, and I am saying when because this thing has made $100 million at the box office at its opening weekend, it's going to get a sequel greenlit. They can have it with the adults in 2016, and basically take all the modern crazy stuff and crank it up to an 11, and also put it into the modern day, which is an interesting hook. But yeah, that is basically first of all, the setup and the changes, but otherwise, it's a very well done version of that exact synopsis I gave you, Michael. It's about six kids, six I think, in a small town of Derry, Maine, dealing with school and talking to girls, dealing with bullies, and then being haunted and terrorized by by this clown Pennywise that keeps turning into things that fear them the most. And they don't sugarcoat it either. Some of these fears are legitimately horrifying. It ranges from stuff like one of the kids is actually flat out scared of clowns, so that's like half the job done already. One of them is actually afraid of the trauma of their parents burning to death alive in a burning building with them watching. Yeah, yeah, it goes to that level. And there's even a certain level of, how I can put this exactly, child abuse survival. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to elaborate on that anymore, but you fill in the imagination yourself, you horrible, horrible person. And the inciting incident for the whole story, of course, is the very iconic scene everybody remembers from the book and the miniseries, which is the death of Georgie Dunborough, the kid with the paper boat, which people kept seeing in the trailer, where he's riding the boat and Pennywise shows him in the grates like, "Oh, you dropped your boat. Here, take it." And he gets killed. And his older brother Bill, who was kind of the main lead of the movie, is dealing with the loss of his brother and also what the heck exactly did this to him. And yeah, it's kind of a weird mishmash, I guess you could say, of like stuff from like Stand by Me, Goonies, uh, yeah, and effectively a monster movie. And that's kind of the weird energy that the movie has. Like, this movie modernly is basically a horror movie. When it has horror movie stuff, it does jump scares, it does tension, it does a lot of gross out stuff. And then when it gets away from that, from the kids escape or run off or whatever, it goes back to kids being kids, dealing with some pretty complicated stuff, and slowly realizing what exactly this clown is, and then that culminates into the second and third act.
For this movie, since it mostly focused on the kids, are they at least like decent acting or have decent background stories to them? I mean, they're
Uh,
just kids, so they can't have too much depth to them, right?
Actually, that's what's really strange because this is why Stephen King stuff I think works. Like, I think I mentioned before, I'm like 300, 400 pages into the novel of it, and these characters, these kids, they can be certain stereotypes we're familiar with now, and I think it's due to familiarity being a thing because of how long it's been. But they're so well realized and thought out. I'm willing to forgive a whole lot of that. And the kid actors they have are pretty good all told. Some of them are really good for kids being this young, dealing with stuff this heavy. In fact, I brought up Stranger Things. One of the kids in the movie is actually one of the kids from the show Stranger Things.
Well, of course they're gonna start getting work now.
Believe
They're,
actually,
they're gonna be the kids that everybody wants in their movies and TV shows now.
Except, actually, a bit of trivia fact for you. This is something kind of funny. When they were trying to get directors for this It remake, the Duffer Brothers actually went to the studio and said, "Please, can we have a shot at directing this?" And the studio turned them down because they said they were not established enough filmmakers. So then they went and pitched Stranger Things to Netflix. That got popular. That got successful. And now, because of the success of the Duffer Brothers going to Netflix, one of the actors from Stranger Things is now in the remake of it.
So it's just more casting kerfuffle. So okay, so if the kids are well, how about the new clown? Does he hold a candle to Tim Curry's clown darkness? Well, actually, that sounds like a Joker. But yeah, is the new clown killer? It's so weird
Well,
to say this, but is the new clown better than Tim Curry?
well, that's what's weird. Like, once again, I'll say it again. I like the kid characters. The kids are act like kids. The dialogue is very good. These are not little adults. These kids swear. They tell crass jokes. They get in the rough and thick of it, and that's perfectly fine. Because you ever hear kids talk when their parents aren't around? They can be foul little meanies.
Oh man, I've heard plenty of kids just say things like "I'll get mad at you, kid," but I was the same way. So
Yeah, yeah.
I never found it like off putting or anything.
They got that, but of course the big sell, of course, is Bill Skarsgård, who plays the new Pennywise the clown, and it's strange because I think Tim Curry was menacing in the TV series, but he really played up the jovial tone of it, like. He kind of came off as a sadistic Bugs Bunny, if that makes any sense. He's like, oh hello, I'm messing with you, and then suddenly his hand turns into a claw and he rips your arm off and so Tim Curry played up the playful clown element, but then went sinister when he had to. Bill Skarsgård does something very different. He comes off as something very alien. His mannerisms and his behavior. He comes off as something that's trying to imitate human behavior, tries to imitate being a clown, and it's much more unsettling. Like once again, going back to the opening sequence, because I'm trying not to spoil a whole lot of this movie. the opening sequence when Georgie meets Pennywise, in the storm drain. Like with Tim Curry in the miniseries, you could feel him just trying to be humble and be happy and fun with them. Like, oh, hello there. Oh, the storm blew me away. Isn't that fun? Don't you want your boat back? Bill Skarsgård, he's like staring off and away from Georgie, and he drools while talking to him, like he's hungry, and it's very unsettling. Just the way he talks and the way he moves, and just how it's a different kind of horror, and it's one that actually scares me a lot more. It's that uncanny valley kind of vibe, and they played it up really well. Like the one thing people forget about is like, as far as anybody else is concerned, when they watch the TV series, it's supposed to be, oh, it's a monster clown that can do stuff, and then he turns into a giant spider at the end, and it's kind of silly. In this remake, they actually remember that he can like shapeshift and transform, and goes into different forms, and they take more advantage of that. And they do use it for some pretty dopey but very well executed like jump scare sequences. Like, have you seen the trailer with the projector with the projector slides?
Yeah, that actually I think that was one in the earlier teasers
Yeah,
for the marketing.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. They do one of those, and yeah, that whole sequence. I saw that jump scare coming. I saw the whole oh no, he's on the projector thing, and then they kept going with it, and they made it somehow worse. Like this is probably the big thing I will say I liked about it. I'm actually not one for jump scares. I'm not one for those. I mean, I'm one for them when they're done well. And this movie does a great job of lingering on the build up a bit longer than what you're expecting before it goes to that payoff jump. Like this is actually a bit that's actually from the novel. Once again from the trailer where Bill bumps into I guess Georgie in the cellar, and he does the whole you'll float too thing while screaming at Bill. Once again, another one of the more early trailers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that one coming, except they actually took a thing from the novel where a similar occurrence happens, but Georgie's face like slowly like rots away like he's a zombie, and it starts rotting away, and they kept that going, and he kept yelling "You'll float too" several dozen times before the clown showed up. I'm like, oh god,
Okay, so they really played it up, but it sounded like it kind of drags on.
it's it actually clocks in about 2 hours long. Yeah, about 2 hours long, and that's probably the problem I will say about the first half of it. A lot of it is basically setting up the kids, setting up what they're afraid of, them escaping from Pennywise, and then when Act Two rolls around and they start figuring out that oh no, this clown isn't just a clown, and he's attacked before, we got to stop him. That's when things start to roll. But the first half is almost cookie cutter. It's here's the kid, here's his history, here's his family, here's what he's afraid of, and oh no, the clown has become the thing he's afraid of, and they escape, and oh no, and then you go to the next person, and they do the same thing again, and then they do that, and as a horror movie, that's repetitive. As a drama story, which in part the movie is, it's about kids getting over themselves and growing as people. You have to have that setup, and it's one of those compromises I think works well. Like the structure of this movie is great. This on a basic fundamental level of a three-act structure, it works. It fits. It's perfectly fine. It's serviceable. But the first half is a bit of a drag. But once things get going, when they start, trying to fight this creature and try do different ways in order to stop him while also dealing with their parents, that picks up. And it's actually the first horror movie in a while that actually remembers that they have to have a justification for why the kids can't just call the police or call their parents on them on this thing, because why the heck not? And that's always a good thing to have. And this is something I will say. Like, I'm pretty sure if you've listened to this, you've probably listened to every other critic or film personality or web person talk about this movie at length. But there's a personal anecdote I do want to get out about it that I really want to address. It was when I went to see the movie in my theater Saturday night, during the weekend release. When I got there, it was a pretty good mishmash of people. There was like guys around my age, like 20s, 30s, right there. There were a couple of older people, like 50s and so on. And right around the front row, there were actually a couple of like 12, 13-year-old kids with their parents, for the record. I want to clarify that. They're very clearly with their parents, so they signed off on this. And they're just taking them to see a scary movie under adult supervision, so, I'm willing to let that slide because, we're all about responsibility here at TRPS. And when the movie, ended, it was interesting to see the initial reaction. Like the adults were like, it wasn't all that scary. Jumped a couple of times. A couple of older people were like, those kids are a bunch of wusses. This is a stupid movie, and they leave. The kids had a ball. The kids were like scared and freaking out. But when it got to the third act with them, fighting Pennywise, they started cheering. And I'm like, there you go. The right child mindset that is going to be needed going into this movie, they've captured that. And I think that's actually why a lot of people are really getting a kick out of this movie because this is a pretty gruesome R rated movie, and the victims and the heroes in this movie are children. These are legitimate 12, 13-year-old kids, and they're getting limbs broken and bruised and cut, and it's nasty. And you want to see them either get away from this thing. And for much of adults, it's like, okay, whatever, they're being attacked and, they're stupid because reasons. I'm like, you're not 12 years old.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I never really understood was the generation gap. Like for people who actually enjoyed the book, you think they see a lot of this coming. Like, okay, it's kids fighting this supernatural being, so it's kind of weird to see them like, oh, this is whatever. When we know they enjoy stuff like Insidious. So
Yeah.
yeah, so like the gap is quite telling.
I
So
think
so on your end, as an older viewer who read the book, who's seen the original one, do you think this one holds up on its own right?
I think in terms of adaptation, it's strong. It is one of the strongest Stephen King adaptations up there. Like it's up there with The Shining, in my opinion. Like this one's gonna be remembered a lot more than the Tim Curry television version, even if in some ways it's a product of its time because like I said, it predominantly does jump scares, and it does so with some kind of obnoxious like sound effects. Those stings, those dun sound effects to make sure everybody gets the scare. So that can get a little tiresome, but at the same time, it captures the spirit of the book a lot more because, as I said before, there's a lot of balancing acts that happen. Like I said before, the kids deal with the bully, and the bully is freaking nasty, and he's got a bad family dynamic, which leads to him taking it out on the kids. You have the girl character Beverly Marsh dealing with some abusive stuff with her father. That's got to be dealt with. There's this whole mystery angle trying to figure out how far back Pennywise has popped up and what's going on there, and a bunch of deviations regarding of everybody else's fears and hangups and problems. And they also got to shove in a monster movie in there. And the very fact they got all that into a little over 2 hours of movie and actually made it all coherent, I think, is fantastic by director Andy Muschietti. And I think the strength of it is that they had to chop it into two movies because the book is effectively two completely separate stories mashed together into some crazy horror epic. So I'd say it's one of those instances where the Hollywood machine of getting sequels has actually been helping it in this respect.
All right, so there's room for it to improve, and there's room for it to actually continue growing. Do you think the sequel can actually keep up with what they set up in the first one?
That is going to be the sticking point because, as I said before, the TV miniseries of it, like I said before, doesn't really hold up. It's a very clear product of its time, and a lot of the more gruesome and horrific stuff that's in the book and in this remake had to be cut down because it was broadcast on network television. And apparently, when they were filming the second half, the budget ran out. So things basically kind of fell apart, and the adult actors in the miniseries are terrible compared to the children in the first half. It is legitimately fascinatingly awful. Like if you have the time, like I said, just pick up a cheapo DVD of it for like $6 at a bargain bin and just watch how it goes from kind of promising chintzy silliness to how the heck are these people still in work? Bad acting. And and also a lot of the more cosmic stuff had to be chopped down. Like I said before, there's a moment there's a bit with a space turtle and the origin of the creature and how it operates and all this different stuff. And not to mention, there's a big difference when you go to being a kid to being an adult. Like, why don't they bring a bunch of machine guns with them to fight this monster this time? Or why don't they do something else to face it? Because they've survived it before. Or how does this all work? Because facing something as a kid is much different than facing something as an adult, and especially since this remake is updating the timetable to 2016, there's a bunch of other things you got to take into account: smartphones, Wi-Fi, internet, like how actively available and cataloged is that stuff, how will that play into effect, how will social media play effect into it. There's a lot of factors that could either overcomplicate or possibly even ruin this movie, this sequel that is yet to be made, despite a very good setup and very good payoff for the first half. So that right now is where I'm concerned, while I'm also excited at the same time, because this could very easily be something amazing. And considering the last big Stephen King adaptation that was in theaters was the Dark Tower movie, I think Stephen King needs this, at least if not, so people can forget some of the other stuff that got adapted out of his work.
Okay, so what are your final thoughts on the new It movie? Recommend it or just wait for it?
I would say if you enjoy supernatural thriller movies, I would actually say give it a watch. Like, even if you're not really one for horror movies, I would actually say give it a watch. Like, see it in the theaters. Get a big old bag of popcorn. See it see it with friends. If you're kind of a horror movie aficionado, like you've seen a lot of stuff from before, this will probably be a bit underwhelming to you, because it's the double-edged sword of it being a very familiar story that's been around since '86. A lot of horror stuff has borrowed from it so much, so a lot of it can feel very familiar, and that could be a problem. Like, if you're a big horror person, you might see it at a matinee, whatever. But if you're like, well, Michael over here, and have like no intention of seeing a horror movie whatso freaking ever, you're not gonna miss much by skipping it. But as I said, if you treat it more as a supernatural thriller with some horror jump scare elements to it, it's still really good.
All right, so I might see it. I don't know. I haven't found anybody who's willing to go see it with me yet.
I was
So
I was badgering you to go see it so we could talk about it.
yeah, and you know what? I wanted to. I really did. I was actually going to do it, but the weekend it came out, which was just last week actually. I went to visit my brother, so I thought, you know what? Since I'm up here visiting my brother, I go ahead and ask him to go see it. He's like, nah, I'm good. So I was like, so I was like, yeah, I'm not going there by myself. So yeah, I didn't get a chance to see it. So
I will say this as well for book purists out there: accept that it's an adaptation. Please, don't be that person that nitpicks and says that that's wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. Accept that it's an adaptation. You're not going to get the 8, 9, 10 hour epic that's everything in the book nonstop exactly as is presented. Please don't be that person.
well, you know who else enjoys reading and not doing anything else? People who play Utawarerumono. Pretty sure I just butchered that.
Oh yes, you've been playing a bit of a game yourself, buddy.
Yeah. So before we
So
kick
tell us
off,
about it.
yeah, before we kick off with your talk of, or at least your tease of Destiny 2, I have been given the prestigious honor of reviewing overseas games. So I've always enjoyed that. It's always been great. But for me, sometimes when it comes to review games, you got to understand people. As professional as we are, we don't like every genre and we don't
I
like
don't.
every game.
There's not a single person out there that truly loves every single genre of game, and if you do, you're lying.
Yeah, for me, I love tactic games. I love strategy RPGs. I
Okay.
find them to be fantastic. Like the Valkyria Chronicle series, I love the first two because of it.
Okay,
The new one, Revolution, yeah,
we don't talk about it.
yeah, it doesn't exist in my eyes. Apparently, it doesn't exist in the creator's eyes either because it's on a separate timeline, like completely different timeline.
Yeah, it was basically a Muso spinoff, but go on.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much what it was, a spinoff. But this next game we're talking about, Utawarerumono, Utawarerumono,
We only got so much time, buddy. Let's just call it by its subtitle.
the
Mask
Mask of
of
Truth,
yeah.
is a sequel. Well, pretty much the third game in the series, but it's a sequel to Mask of Deception, which came out earlier this year. The first game was a Eurog game, if I remember correctly. So it never actually came to the states. So technically, we only got part 2 and 3.
Mhm.
They're both a mix. They're both a mixture of visual novels and strategy RPG.
Hmm.
I will openly admit right now, I have played plenty of visual novels, and I'm not a fan of this. I'm not a fan of the genre.
Fair enough.
Yeah, not a huge fan of something that doesn't actually allow me to play the game I'm playing. I read comics, I read books, I read them. That's fine. But when I pop in a disc to play a game, I expect to play a game. That's my stance on visual novels. But I also see why people love them. Because it gives you a chance to get absorbed in the story and love the characters and not worry about going through obstacles and getting lost along the way. I am complete.
There is an appeal to it. Like if
There
I if
is.
if I do get a visual novel, it'll probably be like on a handheld because that'd be easy just to like pick up. It basically at that point it'd just be a book that plays itself.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah,
Like
I can see the appeal. Yeah.
yeah, I still see visual novel as more like a mobile kind of thing. Like you said, like probably on like a handheld or whatever. Those make sense to me. But for the Mask of Truth, it mixes both visual novels and strategy RPG. A majority of the time, it's just visual novels. Anybody who's ever played a visual novel game knows that you pay attention to the story because one is it can capture you, and two, you still get to make some decisions and some insight
Yeah, yeah,
on.
yeah. There's usually like dialogue options or
Yeah, yeah,
choices you can make.
you actually get involved with the dialogue and with the characters, and you can choose certain things, so you kind of feel like you are the character. Mask of Truth doesn't do that. Mask of
It's
Truth,
it's a bunch of visual novels so that plays itself and doesn't involve you at all.
it absolutely that's pretty much what it is. And I've seen people who love the first one, and now I have to let it know. I have to let you know now. I did not play Mask of Deception.
Okay.
That one flew under my radar.
Okay.
Mask of Truth is a direct sequel in every way. Like it picks up almost immediately after. So
Oh.
yeah. So if you never played Mask of Deception, the game just hits the ground running and assumes that you did.
Oh
So
God.
so yes, you have to go back and play Mask of Deception.
That
The
sounds like a pain in the neck.
Slightly. At first, I tried to stick with it until I noticed that my PlayStation controller was running low on energy and needed to be charged and almost died on me because it just sat there. This isn't even hyperbole, people. I was just sitting there watching this cutscene. It has English subtitles, but it has English text, but the voiceover is completely Japanese. You can't change it.
So you have to read the.
Yeah, which there's nothing wrong with that. Again, it's a visual novel. That's what you're
Continue,
gonna do
continue.
anyway. So I'm sitting here trying to pay attention to the story when I get a notification that your controller battery is low. I was like, that is impossible. I just started. Oh my goodness, it's been almost 2 hours.
Okay, now time for me to play devil's advocate, Michael.
Oh, please do.
Here's the big issue that I do think a lot of people have when it comes to visual novels. There's some, myself included in this camp, that will are willing to deal with a more hands-off experience if the dialogue, the exposition, and the narrative delivery are interesting and engaging and are handled in such a way that keep your attention until the next big dialogue choice or next big decision. It's why I was able to play to completion Lady Killer in a Bind and actually enjoyed it for its narrative design decisions and not just for the other dirty stuff that was in it. But so I have to ask: are the characters and plot and Utawarerumono good?
Not really. They're more cliched and tropes. It's
Okay, you know what? I need context. What exactly is supposed to be the plot of this, as far as you can tell from not playing the prior game?
it's just your typical two kingdoms going to war story.
Okay, so it's a fantasy series. It's a fantasy war campaign narrative.
Yeah. It has kings, queens, princesses, knights, honor, death before dishonor, all that good stuff, which could be interesting. We've seen it being done before with series like The Witcher or even
The
other.
fire the Fire Emblem series
Yeah,
actually
yeah,
plays those really well.
and Fire Emblem, like those games, they use those to draw in characters and be like, okay, it's a fantasy world, we can do whatever, and we can create crazy stuff. This game tries to keep it low key, like it doesn't go full blown fantasy with it.
Oh, it's more. I'm guessing it's more low fantasy, where it's mostly a military fiction with grounded-ish military stuff. I'm guessing
Yeah,
half
which
the
is which
time.
is which is what it kind of does until it starts going to like super power. They do something that's kind of spoilery if you haven't played the game, and I'm not sure if they did it in the first game, but I'm pretty sure they did because everybody talks about it like it pops out of nowhere, and everybody talks about it like they know what it is. So I'm assuming it was in Mask of Deception.
Mac of Deception.
Mask. I'm sorry, Mask of Deception.
Mac has decepted you. He's a mask.
Yeah, it pretty
Okay.
much turned into like this gaiju fight, like not even halfway through the game, like close to about halfway through the game. And I was like, geez, where did this come from all of a sudden?
Wait a minute. So you're trying to tell me it starts off as a Game of Thrones and then it just turns into freaking King Kong?
Slightly, it's really weird because it wants to be fancy, but it wants to keep it grounded. Let's see. There's this giant chicken thing, which, in my opinion, is better than chocobos. I love this giant chicken thing. It kicks butt. I love
Okay.
it. And then there's people with swords and spears, which is kind of cool. And then you meet this woman with this giant gauntlet that's bigger than her that she swings around. And
Proportionate to self. What's that?
yeah. And then there's these. Then one of the characters turns into a giant monster to fight another person who turns into a giant monster, and then you have to get your group to fight this giant monster while they're just regular sized people. It's sometimes it gets all over the place. You can't tell if it wants to be true fantasy or just like hyperbole fantasy. If that makes any sense.
It's a mixing of genre. Like there's low fantasy, which is like I said, is kind of what Game of Thrones is. To go for a more popular answer, which is it's mostly grounded in military realism with a bit of fantasy, and then there is high fantasy, which is do whatever the heck you want. It's swords, but it's also sorcery and shape shifting and
Yeah,
portal jumping and space aliens. And,
yeah, it doesn't
kitchen
hit.
sink.
Yeah, it doesn't hit Final Fantasy level. So there's that. But going back to the dialogue and the characters, it's filler. It's just filler junk. It's so weird. Like the first hour is your character having a bit of amnesia, and
Oh, of course, because amnesia.
yeah, and instead of you being able to play certain sessions to help her remember things, it's everybody giving out exposition. Every
Let me tell you about yourself. No.
and I joke, I kid you not. There's one character who comes in who's all slap happy, and despite the point that everybody spent like a good hour trying to keep things a secret from you, he just comes out. Oh yeah, when you went and did this and did that and this happened, it's like wow. Okay. So why'd you waste my time with all these characters like trying their best to keep this a secret and low key if you're just gonna like have a character come in and
Oh
just
wow.
it's so off, and it was a lame, lazy way to reintroduce all these characters, and it's so bad because the game throws 20 names at you in the beginning with no faces, no real background. It's like, oh yeah, we fought these
Oh,
people, and this person retreated, and this person was poisoned, and this person was kidnapped, and this person
I have no
was in a
frame of
fight.
reference for this, Donnie.
Yeah, and it gets worse. The game is so far up its own butt about its story, it won't actually give you any reference to anybody. But
It's so complicated and complex and deep and meaningful. And why can't you keep up? Because you're
well, well
because you're telling it terribly.
yeah, but the game tries to solve this by having a glossary. And oh my goodness, it's the worst freaking thing I've seen since Valkyria Revolution. Every time you try to go somewhere new or the story advance, glossary just updates with all this random junk. Like there's this person, and you get their backstory, and then there's an index of people and places they're related to, and so you have to go to another part where you have to read this whole thing just to see
Oh
what the world
dear.
they were talking about with the first person, and it's a mess. It
Okay.
is a mess.
Jeez. Okay, so 90% of this is visual novel. What about the 10% that's actually strategy RPG? How is that?
It's fun, and that makes it even more frustrating, and that makes me even more mad at this game.
So
The
it's
strategy RPG part is so much fun.
oh, that's terrible. That's a disappointment. That's always the most maddening thing to review because you know they clearly worked on something really hard and they did something really right, but they put it through the freaking ringer. Like this is just reminding me of me getting trying to get through the utter ball of nonsense that's been the Kingdom Hearts series, and I remember basically watching from start to finish all the cutscenes of 358 over 2 days. But all I remember out of that whole experience was two people sitting on top of a clock tower eating ice cream and being a little angsty. That was basically all it took away from it. It was a combination of just like okay, they're fighting stuff, and then there's stuff about this organization and things and factions and cosmic horrors and hearts and heartless and heartful and heartlessness and heartless. Oh, look, they're eating ice cream again. Oh, okay, we're going back to
Yeah,
this.
and the Mask of Truth has a similar problem with that. It keeps trying to introduce new characters,
and ideas and concepts, but doesn't.
and
It,
and the battle system is so good. It's so fun. It's not too complex, but it's not simple to where you can just like, oh, I'm gonna fly through this fight.
mm,
It's something that we actually do need some strategy. I've come so close to losing in one battle during a boss battle that all I had, like all my fighters were down. All I had left was my bow and arrow guy, who's pretty much a sniper in the game, and a healer. Out of 6 people that I had in there, my healer, my sniper, I had two bows and 3 fighters.
you were outnumbered and you were outgunned. You actually had to like think on the fly and turn the tide.
Well, the thing is, I thought ahead, and I was like, okay, they're on upper hill, so they have their bows and arrows have the upper hand. I was able to get rid of their fighters, corner their archers, and get rid of them, but at the cost of 3 of my fighters and 1 of my archers. So all I had was my archer who could slightly heal himself, and my healer versus
Yikes.
versus the actual boss and 2 of his archers that were left. I thought I was going to lose that battle, but with a quick retreat and ability to heal myself quickly and being able to force them to use their specials before they were able to finish me off, I was actually able to run down the boss's health until I won.
Death by 1,000 cuts, I'm guessing.
It was so rewarding. It
That sounds great.
it does, and the game is filled with that to where you think you're gonna lose, but if you actually pause a second, think about who you have, what they can do, and the make of the land, because each battleground has something different and unique for them for you to actually move around and for your enemy to move around. So you can actually take a time to stop, look at your surroundings, look who you have left, and
And
make a
plan ahead.
decision. Yeah, and it's so fun. I just wish that they would let me play the game rather than sit with these boring, cliched characters I care nothing about, and the game doesn't do a very good job of making me actually care about them.
Oh, that is painful.
It really is. And the game wastes time with stuff like characters taking a bath, characters going hunting, boob jokes, poop jokes, Like no joke, there's a whole section about somebody farting in a cave or something, and your dad not being able to make tea. And I'm just sitting here like, I understand that you think this is character development, but no, you're just wasting my time here. Can we move this along right now?
We're just characters. They're being fun, and we're not fighting each other and
Yeah.
stuff.
Also, I can't figure out what they are. I'm not sure these people are cats. It's really weird. They have these ears and tails, but some of them have tails, others don't.
That
And
sounds
some,
terrible.
yeah, some of them have the ears and the tail, and some of them only have the ears, and some only have the tail. It's really weird. I spent like for some strange reasons, despite the point that I was reading this story, my biggest concern was, what are you people exactly? It was just
Those are
strange
the
to
big
me.
questions. Those are the big questions you should be answering. Uh,
I know it wasn't important, but like I couldn't help but try to figure that out. It's
oh
really weird.
man.
But the thing is, I actually like the characters more during battle.
When you're actually allowed to you see them as units and see their worth in a gameplay context, when it isn't just you know the visual
Yeah,
novel part stretching for time. That
yeah,
is
and that's the weird thing. The story things that they're doing so much to make you care about these characters, but honestly, it was drawing me out. But when I was able to play these characters and I was able to fight with them, and they all have their own abilities. Even if you have two, three healers, each healer has their own ability to actually fight and defend. And that made me care about them more because when I actually lost somebody in battle, I felt bad about it. And trust me, it
it's
wasn't because of the story part.
it's you can tell more about a character by how they operate in an interactive context than mountains of text can allow.
Well, the thing is, they interact with each other during the battles. They would actually say things like a healer, like I had a healer who healed somebody, and they legitimately turn around, thank the person, and they respond. And it's so great. I don't understand why the game
So,
doesn't do more of that.
so it sounds like they took the. It sounds like they looked at Fire Emblem and said, "Do you know what this needs? We need more talking and dialogue and exposition and anime tropes, and just flood that with that because that's what the players want."
If you like the first one, I mean, I'm guessing you're going to like the second one. If you haven't played the first one, don't play Mask of Truth. Try out Mask of Deception first if you're into visual novels. If you're more into gameplay, you're not going to get a whole lot here.
Hmm.
So, yeah, Mask of Truth isn't for me, and it isn't for somebody who actually wants to play the game. But if you just want to read, absolutely, it's right there for you. It's not a bad story, but it's not a very good one either.
That sounds depressing. So let's have the other shoe drop on the other thing we do want to talk about. I've actually just finally had the opportunity to finish my extended review in progress, I guess, of Bungie and Activision's follow up to their mediocre $500 million space shooter. I am, of course, talking about Destiny 2. And, okay, I'm sorry, that's the second time I've done that, but that's really all I can really muster out of Destiny 2. It's more Destiny, and they've cut out a good chunk of the problematic stuff that I hated from the game when it originally launched in 2014 in vanilla form. And it's weird because I do know there are some people out there that are huge fans of Bungie's work and they will eat it up just for that satisfying, punchy gunplay alone and the beautiful art direction and the genuinely fantastic orchestral score it has. And then you have the people that have been burnt enough on on their style. You're included in that, I bet, Michael. They're just like, okay, I don't care. And that's really the only thing I really can say about Destiny 2. It's good, it improves on a lot of stuff, but then there's just some weird stuff that gets in the way. It's kind of odd. Like, Michael, please ask me some questions. I need something to bounce off of here.
Okay, as you know, I am not a fan of Destiny. So, okay, compared to say when they updated the game with the Taken King, the one update that apparently made the game better than the vanilla base game. Does this initial launch matches at least with the Taken King?
Yes, I will say it definitely equates to the Taken King. Like this, Destiny 2 feels like what would happen if they actually learned their lessons from the Taken King and did it at Destiny 1's launch. In some ways, it doesn't feel so much like a sequel as much as it does a soft reboot of things because the entire plot of the game is basically your home gets destroyed and all the gear and stuff you've gotten over the past game if you're importing your character gets blown up and stolen by this new villain named Dominus Gaul, who is the head of this alien faction that basically takes your home and kicks you out. And the campaign just frames a sort of underdog story because he's taken your light, which is the space magic that powers the Guardians and makes them cool. And oh no, now you're without your superpowers. How will you save the day now? When they frame that as the campaign, and it's not a bad setup, because the original Destiny's campaign was stupendously idiotic with its storytelling. Everybody has brought it up before. What are you doing? You're fighting the darkness. What's the darkness? I'm not telling you. Read this text on a separate website. Oh, and you fight something called the Black Garden and him is mysticness. Like, I'm not even kidding. That was basically all I gathered from the first game. This one's much more conventional and straightforward. Evil alien conqueror shows up with his death arm. He kicks your butt, takes your space magic from you, and leaves you for dead. And you're trying to get your power back to fight him off, and prove the worth of a hero without your abilities thing. And the first two missions are actually really good at setting this up, and then they just kind of forget about it. It's probably the biggest issue I do kind of have with the campaign. Like I said before, the mission starts with you fighting off in the tower. Like, you got these good weapons, you got your stuff, you got your subclasses, you got everything powered up, and then the following mission is after your light gets taken and you're stuck with a pistol with no ammo. You have no powers whatsoever. Your armor's all beaten up and tattered, and the text on it is changed to stuff like "You have been destroyed, you've been beaten, you can't come back from this." And your ghost is so damaged he can only heal you and not revive you. And there's an extended sequence where you're fleeing the city and basically surviving in the wilds. And it's almost like a survival set piece. It felt almost closer to The Last of Us than anything else. You having to count your rounds and fight off enemies as you're wandering through camps of other guardians, quote unquote, that have died or have been attacked. And then the next mission, then the next mission you find something, and then bam, you get some of your power back, and then it turns into Destiny again. And it's weird how that happens because from there it then moves at a Call of Duty pace, if that makes any sense. It turns into now we need allies. Oh, we have allies. Okay, now we need weapons. Oh, we got weapons. Now we need a plan in order to take back our home. We have a plan. Okay, really? Let's execute it. Okay, boom, it's over. It's the strangest issue where I think if they took more time with it, I would have liked the campaign more. If that makes any sense. Like the first Destiny campaign went on for way too long and told you nothing. This one actually told you something and sped to the end.
All right, so again, Bungie has an issue with telling stories coherently, or maybe it's because they're waiting for the next two DLCs they have planned.
I will say once again, this game, Destiny 2's plot is miles better than Destiny 1's, just on the sheer fact of it being conventional and straightforward and easily recognizable and accessible. On those merits alone, I'm willing to say it's better. I'm not necessarily saying it's amazing.
All right, so I'm gonna bring this up because we were talking about this earlier, and you've been praising this game so far, and I want you to say something negative. You were talking about the treasures in the new loot box and the shader problems.
Oh
Tell us
yeah,
all about that.
like I wish I could say any more about Destiny 2, but like I said, it's basically on the fundamental level. If you like the good stuff of Destiny, the good stuff is still here, and most of the bad stuff is gone. So if you've played Destiny before, it's more content for you. Go nuts. If you're burnt out on Destiny or don't like Bungie stuff all that often, this isn't going to win you over. Having said that, though, there is a bit of a controversy that's been going on involving shaders in the game. If you're not familiar, shaders are these items you got in Destiny 1. They're basically like these color patches, and when you equipped them, it would basically recolor the entire suit of armor you're wearing at the time. and it was done in a way to give your character sort of a customizable look. So it's like, oh no, this armor's kind of drab. You activate this shader. Oh cool, now it's a mix of silver and red and has like little traces of silver. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. I feel unique. And the thing is, once you got that shader, it was yours. You had it. You could use as many times as you like on as many different pieces on the armor as a whole, and it was yours. And they were usually tied to rewards. And like I'm like, okay, fine. Destiny 2 has it now that these shaders you can apply to individual pieces of your armor and even your weapons now. The problem is they're consumable. You use them once, they're gone, and you can get and the idea is that you have to get multiples of the same shader, which are only available as drops from loot boxes or from vendors. And when I say loot boxes, I'm talking about some treasure chests you find in the world by finishing finishing any of the many activities in the game. But the more high end and more unique looking shaders are also sold through the Eververse store, which is the microtransactions of the game, which is full of items that can only be bought with silver, which is a premium currency you can only get by using real world money.
Man, the way you sound while you were saying that says a lot.
Yeah. Like,
In fact, I'm pretty sure you had a problem with Overwatch because of loot
yeah.
box, and you also have a problem with Shadow Mordor. But we're not gonna go into that because that's for a whole another show.
Yeah. I've been very adamant against this loot box culture because it destroys it destroys the sense of progression, the feeling of continuing getting better, and that's what I actually liked about Destiny 1. With all the expansions included, because it gave you this sense of accomplishment. You earned this emblem, you earned this shader, you earned this weapon, you earned this trophy, and they do a good job with that. And now with Destiny 2, these shaders are now tied to bright engrams, which are basically the new loot boxes in this game. Oh, but you can earn them in game because once you hit the level cap of 20 in the game, you can keep leveling up, and instead you'll get an engram. See? Now you can roll the dice and level up just like you're playing Overwatch. Mm.
But it doesn't have an effect on the multiplayer, huh? Yeah.
Actually, there's actually a terrifying problem as well. There's also a new thing you can get from the Eververse store known as weapon and armor mods, which are these things you can slot into your weapons and armor to give you certain buffs or abilities. And there is the potential for some of these mods to be dangerous, and some of which can only be obtained through bright engrams. So there's a potential pay to win unfair element that is in play when it comes to you playing Crucible. So I haven't actually fully tested this, but that is a danger right there. So there's a potential pay to win thing. Not to mention, pay to win, min maxing for the raid that's going to go live tomorrow as of this recording. So there is actually a certain level of potential pay to win going on top of a bunch of cosmetic stuff, which I am not going to buy into the argument that it's just cosmetic doesn't affect the game at all, because Destiny is a game that thrives on its aesthetic. Its art department works its butt off to make everything look amazing and making you want to own or be a part of this world. The cosmetics in this here will encourage people, however subtly, to try to buy or get some of it themselves. And that's something that truly has lessened this experience to me.
All right. So, for you being the Destiny fan that you are, do you recommend Destiny 2 to somebody who's a little off about it, or somebody who's like, well, Destiny 1 wasn't my thing? Kind of like me. I didn't care for Destiny 1.
If you have a
Still
bunch,
haven't finished it.
if you have a bunch of friends that are willing to play, they're playing it already, you're probably gonna pick it up anyway, because as an online shooter, it's fine. It's fun. It's satisfying. It's a good handy time waster. But if you have no interest in it at all, or didn't have any interest in it at all, you can easily skip it and go to something else. Like, you know, it's perfectly fine. Like I
Like
said,
Overwatch.
it's no, Destiny 2 is the good kind of inoffensive. Like, you can play it, anybody can enjoy it, anybody can love it. and as much as you put into it is how much you'll get out of it. Like I said before, I have friends who play it. I'm actually the head of my own clan, and this new clan system they have in here is actually pretty fun. And I'm actually chewing on the nightfalls and everything, getting ready for the raid, and I'm getting into that. But that's me after 3 years of watching this game grow from being kind of terrible to being kind of a hot mess, a brilliant hot mess, if I may add, and it's coming to this. So, like I said, if you're a fan, you've already picked it up. If you have no interest in it at all, you're probably not going to pick it up. If you're interested at all and want to see how things have improved, I would say give it a rental and see for yourself. Otherwise, you're probably not going to be won over. I think that's about all we can really talk about here on this episode of That Random Podcast. And considering the fact that we only have so many hours in the day to record this sort of stuff, certain things do slip through the cracks. But we do our best to comment on every little thing that does happen in geek culture, or at least the big stuff that happens that we believe people should know more about. And as such, if you wish to be more up to date on that sort of stuff, you can follow me on Twitter at Darth Rahu, capital D, capital R, all one word. You may also follow me in a more professional capacity at my reviews at thegamefanatics.com, and of course, follow the other people who are working there as well. You can also follow me in a more casual prose capacity in my personal blog at cybertavern.blogspot.com, where I write more open-ended geek thought pieces on animation, game design, and creative writing. And I, of course, also am on a secondary podcast with the Game Fanatics, the Game Fanatics Live. I show up every Tuesday on their Twitch channel for a live recording of our stuff and talk about gaming current events. Michael, where can we follow you?
You can, of course, find me on Twitter with Zafmon, and if for some strange reason you can't find me that way, you can find me on my Twitter handle of at M_MOSLEY_JR. And I would hawk away with my streaming, but nobody watches that. Which I will say that I will not be using Twitch and Mixer for a while. I'm actually going to be using Caffeine.
Hmm.
That's a new streaming company that's come along. I'm gonna go ahead and give that a shot. Hit while it's still young and in its infancy. But you people
Indeed.
can, yeah, but you people can also, of course, find our podcast not only on YouTube, but with Apple Podcasts. Well, now it's Apple Music, but still Apple Podcasts. You can just look up That Random Podcast Show in the search, and you should be able to find us. And of course, a couple of days after our show goes up on Anchor, which you should just go on Anchor and find us there. And from there, you can also get information on our other shows and our other episodes. And of course, if you don't have Apple products, you can also use your Android. We are now also on Google Music. So we're making it, people. We're going places.
Oh yes, absolutely. And of course, if you do want to watch me and possibly the rest of my clan play through Destiny 2, or possibly other things will be coming down the line from reviewers or from publishers and the like, you can also follow my streaming channel on Twitch at DigiDesperado26, all one word. Had to plug all that as well. And I think that will be it for this episode. Take care, everybody.
This show floats too.
They all float.